It's EMS week in 2020, and I'd like to share with you how the Prospect Heights Fire District has become the organization that it is over the last 75 years. Back in the 1940s, in the infancy of the fire district, the Lions Club presented a resuscitator, an E&J inhalator resuscitator, to the fire district, and this was the standard of care for first aid back then. This particular inhalator is still in the possession of the fire district, and I'd like to get it cleaned up so we can display it more proudly. But it provided service up until the 1980s. Between the 1960s and the 1990s, we saw a huge transition in how EMS service was delivered. The fire district had used funeral home hearse ambulances, and in 1973 it obtained its own ambulance, and in 1985 we moved into paramedic service. The real impetus for all this was the TV show Emergency, which showcased the work of Los Angeles County Fire Department paramedics. At that same time, a few other organizations in the United States were developing paramedics, such as the Freedom House in Pittsburgh, the Miami Fire Department, and a few others. Illinois quickly developed its own paramedic program in 1972, and our own Captain Mike Pettengill was a volunteer firefighter here in Prospect Heights and became one of the very first paramedics in the state of Illinois. Captain Mike, as he was affectionately known, was in the very first class of Illinois paramedics. The district obtained the ambulance, members were trained up as EMTs, and from 1973 to 1985 we provided basic life support care. We obtained an ambulance in 1985 that gave us ALS capabilities. We began staffing the firehouse with part-time paramedics, and we've grown the program ever since. We used to use some of these things, such as the mast pants or pneumatic anti-shock garments, half backboards and sandbags to stabilize C-spines, a telemetry radio that allowed two-way communication and the transmission of EKGs prior to the advent of cell phones, and this archaic-looking device that was a hybrid between football shoulder pads and a traction splint called the Meyer cervical orthosis. Our monitored defibrillators have progressed from the LifePak 3 and 4 on the upper left to the LifePak 5, which was first used here in Prospect Heights in 1985, to the LifePak 10, to the Zoll X series, and now, the Zoll M series, and now the Zoll X series, with all the bells and whistles of 12 leads, end-tidal CO2, pulse ox, and the ability to transmit the cell phone data. You all know the things that we have now, but these things have only been around a few years or 10 years, not 20, 30, or 40 years. It costs us about $375,000 to put an ambulance on the street. That includes the monitor, the cot, and all the items on Northwest Community's drug and supply list, as well as the IDPH minimum equipment inventory. I'm proud that we're a member of the Northwest Community EMS system, the first EMS system in the state of Illinois. We've only had 3 medical directors since the system was formed in 1972. First, Dr. Stanley Zidlow, who served for more than 20 years. Then Dr. John Ortnow, who served for about 20 years. And the last few years we've had Dr. Jordan. All these guys are great guys, and they do a really good job of providing us with medical direction. We also have our staff of Connie, Susan, and Jen, who help keep our ship straight. You know, back when the system was formed in 1972, the SOPs were 3 pages long. Now we have 100 pages of guidance between our SOPs, our procedure manual, and our policy manual, and we're better off for it. We also had a single-page paper PCR from 1972 up until about 1996, when the Northwest Community EMS system developed its own computer-based PCR. As you know, we now use the image trend PCR. In that same period of time, refusals for service have risen from less than 10% to about 30% of all calls. What really makes our system great are all of the member agencies, 21 fire and 3 private. Our members participate in the various committees, including the chiefs, the provider coordinators, our PBPR, our CARS, our education, our research development. It's these committees that drive the change at the Northwest Community EMS system, and it's member driven. It's quite the work in progress, lots of moving parts, but it all works out rather well. And the alternative, which I'm not up for, is to belong to a system where there is no member input, there is no member participation, and there's no member direction. And that is not the shared governance model of our system. All of our documents are publicly available on our webpage. And in the end, you can either be part of the process or you can take what you can get. And I vote for the part where we get to drive the process. And I've done that since I took the lead as EMS here in 1985. I hope you enjoy what we do.